Hello and welcome to the Badass Unicorn Summer Series, a programme of intimate conversations with some of my most badass friends. This series aims to provide honest, motivating and no-nonsense perspectives from people who've been there and muddied the t-shirt to inspire you as part of your personal development journey. I have carefully selected a set of aspirational guests who've done some amazing things, but who I think will find are very much just like you and I. Through their stories and wisdom, I hope you will find pertinent nuggets that will fuel your growth and help you to realize your dreams. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my next podcast guest, Laura Mimoun. From many coaching conversations that I've had, I know that many of us fantasize about starting a food business at some point, the cafe. So if you belong in that camp, or if you've ever envisioned starting a direct-to-consumer brand, this episode is 100% for you. Laura is the co-founder of a brand called Kaleido. And Kaleido have done something very cool by innovating two of the world's most loved lunch products, the salad and the sandwich. And they've brought them together in this incredibly amazing way by wrapping deliciously fresh ingredients in rice paper. 5 years ago, they were bringing a sample of their products to our friendship group to test out the concept. They've had an amazing run since then with a pop-up in Selfridges. They've fundraised, and now they are about to launch their 6th location in London. Formerly, Laura is a top marketing executive for some of the world's most renowned brands within the likes of Mondelez and PepsiCo. And she's also a close friend of mine whose sass, wisdom, and sense of fun I cannot wait for you guys to experience. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hello, my dear. How are you?
I'm delighted to be with you today. And I'm very well, thanks.
Good. I feel like you and me, we've been on a bit of a journey together these past, 7-8 years that we've been friends, haven't we?
Yes.
Always cheerleaders.
Yes, definitely. And so many things have changed. And I think it's funny to see that our paths have, went in the same direction in a way. So it's nice to see that.
I know. It's special, isn't it? All right, well, let's talk about the path then. Let's talk about life for you before starting Kaleido. So if you can just tell us a little bit more about your journey up to that point.
So before Kaleido, I was very happy. I'm still very happy. I was working in marketing in big companies, so very different vibes than what I'm doing at the moment. I've worked mainly in chocolates and then in drinks. And doing that for many years, around 8 years, being very ambitious, very driven, a bit work alcoholic. And it's funny because I see the same kind of attributes, let's say, in my current life and career.
Attributes is the workaholic, the ambition, the drive.
Yeah, because I think who you are and what motivates you is the same anyway, regardless the environment where you're working. I think I've changed a lot, with this experience and with entrepreneurship. I think I have changed mainly by becoming a mother, but of course, there has been, a before entrepreneurship and an after. But still, I think what I am in terms of person, the way I work, my work ethics, my drive is the same.
Interesting. I think that what that hits a chord for me with is becoming a mother, and I think you talked about how being a mother changed your perspective, and I think for me it has changed my perspective in some respects, but actually I'm the same neurotic, highly strung, ambitious woman that I was before having kids as I was afterwards. And I think I had this slightly naive idea that having a child was going to center and anchor me in a way that was going to perhaps fix that. And actually, really, it just antagonizes that, doesn't it? Because having this person that you care so much about only adds to the stress and the pressure and the joy and all of the good things as well. But actually envisaging that this big change, whether it's your career or your lifestyle or whatever it may be, is going to fundamentally altered the human being that is in front of you is perhaps slightly misplaced.
Yeah, I agree with that. What I would say though is entrepreneurship, as you know, is a roller coaster. And I think becoming a mother has softened a bit the roller coaster for me. By that, I mean that the lows have remained lows, but I have been able to reflect on them and keep a bit more distance with them, because I had, my family life that was, becoming more and more important. And I have really felt that the stress that, was part of me in my previous life and with Kaleido, in a way has changed. It is still present, as you said, because you are running every time and life is chaotic and you have thousands of things to do, even more than before. However, I know how to disconnect now, because when I decide to disconnect because I want to be, with my daughter, then I know how to do it. And it's not really something I used to know in the past.
I think for me, whenever I feel stressed or anxious or worried, and normally it's work related, I kind of look at her, and we're very blessed that Ophelia seems to be happy, healthy, and thriving. And I just think everything else is secondary. And I love my career, I love what I do, but it does just help to remind you about what's really important in life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, I love a little tangent right at the beginning as well, going on to motherhood. So tell us then about founding Kaleido. Like, when did you have the idea? What were your first kind of steps towards it? How did you get it off the ground? Give us that story.
So I think it was a mental process to start with, because I got the idea in a random evening. I was with, my husband, Denis, we were cooking, and we were like, oh, that will be cool. I would eat a salad sandwich. This is what I need. So this is how everything started. But actually from that moment of time to the moment we actually started we made the jump, it has been a lot of months, and it was a big mental process. I think on my hand, what I was looking for was social approbation. I wanted the approbation from my parents. I wanted the approbation from my friends. I wanted the approbation from Denis, my husband. And I wanted to rationally evaluate the risk of making this jump and decide rationally that it was the right thing to do. So this is what happened in around 6 months' time. And then I resigned. And then it was all about making little steps, creating a product, making it taste by some friends and family, calling a food market to ask if they would be, okay to have us for a weekend. And all these little steps always brought us to another step and, a bigger opportunity. And everything went like that. We had a final ambition that was crazy at that time, which was to become a fast food player, to shake up the salad market, to open multiple kiosks and shops everywhere in the UK, but also in the world. We had this final dream, but we didn't really know how to get there. And actually, we took different roads, and all the roads we have taken brought us to where we are at the moment, but it was not necessarily what I would have expected or written if I was doing like a proper, business plan, or, everything happened little by little and took us where we are.
I mean, I love that. I mean, you definitely wouldn't have written COVID in your business plan, would you? Or like have a baby or what have you, but life throws you curveballs as well. I think, what really hits me with what you're saying is this kind of little steps. And at the beginning, you're not really knowing what the right steps are to take, or if they're going in the right direction, or if they're going to work. And some of them will be dead ends, but you just keep trying to move forward and try to take steps. And I remember really clearly, you and I, we met in Chancery Lane, didn't we? And we had a coffee, and it was about 3 or 4 years ago. And you use this analogy that I still use now when I'm teaching, about how during that period when everything feels so uncertain and you're not sure about if you're taking the right step or the wrong step, you use this analogy, this metaphor of thinking like you're in a car. And when you're driving in the dark, you only need to be able to see a meter in front of you. And then when you move a meter, you're going to be able to see in front of you the next meter and the next meter, and so on and so on. And so you don't have to have the full picture. You don't have to be able to see everything. And it can feel really dark and overbearing and scary. But if you just keep moving forward meter by meter, the path will become clearer and you'll figure your way through. And
definitely,
I love that concept.
Definitely. And it's so funny. I was smiling because I don't have my driving license. I failed 5 times. So it's very funny that I use, this kind of analogies. But yeah, I think it's true. I think it's all about, little step. I think you need to see the final game. You need to have it in mind always, anytime. It could be a dream. It could be a goal, which is a bit different. It could be, but it's all about the immediate next step, I think.
Yeah. And not being afraid to take a misturn, or there is not one path to that goal or that vision. I'd call it a North Star. In fact, there's multiple different avenues that you can go, which I think in a way is quite freeing. You don't have to follow this specific route to get there, but it's all about having enough conviction, confidence, self-belief. And that doesn't mean not having an imposter. It just means pushing past those things and doing it anyway, to carve out the path that opens itself up to you. As you say, different things that you do open up different avenues that you then pursue that you wouldn't have seen if you hadn't gone down this route or what have you.
Yes, but what you are calling freedom can be quite scary.
Yeah.
And it can be quite overwhelming. And I think, especially when you have my kind of background, you've worked only for big businesses where you have a process for everything. You have a process when your laptop is not working. You have a process to, enter the office. You have a process to launch a new product. And suddenly you have no more processes. You have no more colleagues. You have just yourself and your ideas and your freedom. It could be quite overwhelming.
I completely agree. How did you overcome that? How did you deal with that to keep moving forward in the ambiguity and the fear?
I think by being surrounded by great people, by nice people, people that help me to, to appreciate that it was normal, and also sometimes that helped me. It's very funny, but I needed sometimes almost to have like a boss. And I think Denis, that was part-time, so he had a job, but he was working with me on Kaleido on evenings.
Denis is Laura's husband, by the way, just so that everybody knows who Denis is. Denis is Laura's husband and co-founder and business partner. Exactly. And baby daddy.
And I think the fact that I had him was giving me this kind of approbation and reassurance I was needed at that time. And he was behaving a bit like a boss in a way, because I was telling him all the stuff I was doing, and I was, discussing with him and getting his feedback. So that was for me, let's say, a transition that was quite helpful. And then it's just about, relaxing, breathing, meeting other entrepreneurs, seeing that you're not alone in this difficult journey. I was going to a lot of events when I started Kaleido. I'm not doing that anymore, but it is true that I was going to a lot of events.
So it sounds like you built a support network for yourself via your partner and your co-founder, your friends, perhaps mentors, and also people who were entrepreneurs like you on the same journey to really help you feel like you had that system of support that you needed as part of the journey. Okay.
And
cool.
you remind me of a very funny story, because when I started, I hired, which was crazy now that I think about it, a trainee for like 6 months at the really beginning of my journey, which was a mistake because I even didn't know what to do myself. So obviously I was not able to, give any direction. And this person was so dark, it was all about, are you sure you will be taken in this food market, but you don't have this and you don't have that, and they are asking for a stall picture and you don't have that. And it was really driving me down. And after a few months, I was like, are you sure you cannot find another internship in London, blah, blah, blah. And to your point about being surrounded by, supporting network, I think it's this, but it's also making sure that you really avoid all these people that will destroy progressively your confidence and your dream. Because if there is one thing an entrepreneur really, really needs, it's confidence and motivation and energy. And anyone that is actually, disturbing your energy and or your confidence needs to, really go far away from you.
I agree with you. I love this. We're kind of like challenging each other on some of these things, which is, I hope, enjoyable for those listening. I think you're right, except that sometimes the naysayers and the negative people are people you can't get rid of very easily. So maybe it's your mum and dad, right, who want you to have a more traditional route to success, or perhaps it's your partner, perhaps it's some of your friends who doubt you. And if I think about myself, when I went full-time on Badass Unicorn 2 years ago, in the midst of the COVID pandemic, I think if it was up to my family, my boyfriend at the time, like, they would probably have all said, I think you should just go and get a normal job. Now is not the time to do it. And I am now married to my boyfriend, and I didn't want to get rid of my parents. And so sometimes you do have to persevere in the face of some, they weren't, darkly negative and pulling me down, but I think they were fearful for me, and they were concerned, and maybe they didn't have as much belief in me and the proposition as they have now 2 years on, and having made a decent success of it. So unfortunately, sometimes you can't necessarily just shake off those more challenging people. But for me, actually, in a way, it spurred me on. I was like, I'll show you, mum, I'll show you, dad, I'll show you, Harry, husband, that I know what I'm doing here, and I'm gonna make a really good go of it. And one of the things that I always reassured myself, particularly at that beginning time, was, okay, you're going to try this for 6 months. I had a bit of redundancy money in my back pocket so I could pay the mortgage and, eat. And I was like, and I'm just going to try. And if I fail, and if this doesn't work, then so be it. At least I can say that I gave it my best go, and I will learn a lot, and I can always go back and get another job. Right. So that kind of gave me the motivation to say, I'm going to show everybody, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And if I don't, that's okay. I haven't really lost anything apart from maybe a bit of face and a bit of time and maybe a bit of money, but at least I can tap myself on the back for trying anyway.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay. So tell us a bit more about those early months when you started Kaleido, because it is such it's such a roller coaster. You're learning so much. You don't really have a clue what you're doing most of the time. You know, how did you find that time? What were some of maybe the most difficult parts of that, you know, early couple of years?
I think what was difficult is the loneliness, because suddenly you are on your own, and if you don't deliver, nothing will happen. So I think that was the hardest. My advice actually on that will be look for the win. So try to see what you can achieve that will be an easy win, or not necessarily an easy win, but a visible win that will help you and make you jump into, you know, your objective quicker. But yeah, I found it very difficult, especially hospitality, which is quite it's a physical job. You have to learn some skills that you really don't have necessarily if you have never worked in hospitality. So I think depending on the industry, the challenge will be different. For some people, it would be money. For some people, it would be, you know, knowledge or skills. For me, it was mainly physical, because I had never, you know, I'm coming from a posh background. I had never had, like, you know, a lot of summer jobs or stuff to do in my life. And suddenly I had to do everything myself. I actually worked in a fast food for 2 months to learn a bit the industry. So no one knew that I had a prestigious job before. No one knew that I didn't need the money I was earning. I was, you know, really doing everything like everyone. And I was like, fuck, that's hard, you know, it's so hard. I had to lift, you know, bean bags full of orange skins and juice pulp. People were really not nice. And for me, what was difficult was the gap between my very comfortable life to a life that was very different. But I think it was needed. And I think in the way I'm treating people at, you know, in my company now, I needed at least to see what was the industry standard to be able to have an impact on it.
Yeah, it feels like in English you'd say, you know, you're really at the coalface. You really got to see what life looked like at the front end of the people that would work for you, and get to know the business. And what I find so inspiring about what you were just talking about is you've heard me talk about this concept of follow the scent, of sniffing out ways to follow the things that bring you joy and curiosity. And it sounds like during that early period, you were really following the scent, but actually in a slightly different way of really trying to understand the industry and learn all of the things that you needed to learn, and just really become more informed as an entrepreneur, which is a really important thing. Specifically on the food element, and given that, you know, so many people dream of opening their own cafe one day or what have you, what are the types of things you need to know, like health and safety and food preparation and like all of that kind of thing? Tell us a bit more about that specific kind of technical knowledge and accreditation that you need to work in the food business.
So like many of you know, new food entrepreneur, I discovered everything when I started. So I just Google, okay, set up a food business, health and safety, you know, all of that. And I learned on the fly by reading, you know, government websites, food standard agency websites. We started from home, so I had to get my flat registered with the council. So you have to fill up a very easy form, and then you have to wait for the council to visit you. So you have to make sure everything is I lost the word in English, compliant in your home. So for instance, you need to have everything that is raw can contaminate the ready to eat food. So you need to have everything that is raw on the lower shelf of your fridge. So I was like, okay, we need to buy another fridge at some point, because Denis was moving all the stuff around because he was coming home at night. He didn't do this training. So we bought another fridge. We labeled everything. We did things little by little by learning what was available online. And then when we did our first food market, we had to buy a lot of equipment to set up the stall. So that's how everything happened. It feels so far away now, but yeah, this is what I remember from it.
I mean, I hope that the listeners are finding this as inspiring as me. It just reminds you about what you can achieve in 5 years, but how where you're now opening your 6th store, you've fundraised, you've got a pop-up and Selfridges, you've had tons of press, you're doing all of these incredible things. You started this business in your kitchen, in your flat kitchen, right? Then you started doing food markets. Then you started doing, it was catering, right? You were kind of doing catering for like, when you're doing Vogue and some other like pretty high caliber clients. And so really, I mean, for those who can see me, I'm doing the steps here. It really is. These are the steps and the baby steps. And, how much would the you who was labeling things in the fridge 5 years ago be smiling down on you right now, thinking, look what you did.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely some pride. I think for me, the 2 moments there are many moments I have been proud. And from the beginning, to be honest, the first time the food market said, yes, you are able to have a stall, I was very proud. The first time we received some awards, when we launched in Selfridges. But what really, the recent wins, I would say, Harrods was very particular, because there is something about Harrods. You have like such a premiumness when you are in Harrods. You have, everyone with a perfect uniform and everything is so perfect. And to see my brand there was quite unique. And the second thing is we have just opened in King's Cross, St. Pancras, just in front of the Eurostar. And when I came back from France, and you're just exiting the Eurostar, and you see your shop here, and you're like, wow. So these 2 moments have been quite unique. But all the little wins are as much enjoyable, to be honest, because you have to celebrate all the little wins. This is what makes you keep going, and also this is what is offsetting the lows that are also, very hard sometimes. So yeah.
I mean, I just got goosebumps talking about seeing your shop as you came out of the Eurostar. That's amazing. And I think the point I really just want to drum home here to our listeners is to remember that greatness comes from small beginnings, and all of those steps, the kitchen, the food market, the trialing with friends and family, asking them to do the survey, your first order with Vogue, all of those things, they're just steps towards the future that you're building. And they're all so important to that journey. And I know it may feel at times like, how the fuck am I going to go from these humble beginnings to what I'm trying to achieve? But Laura is, an amazing example of that. And she's got bigger aspirations. She hasn't hit world domination of the first food market yet, right? But a lot of us would look at him and think, wow, oh my gosh, you've achieved such success. The same with me, probably. You know, I'm looking at other people thinking, why don't I have a best-selling book and a podcast that's got thousands of listeners? And yet there'll be people looking at me thinking, wow, Alice has got her shit together. So, you know, just we have to keep plodding on and taking those wins and making those steps forward and trusting that with that dedication and perseverance and resilience and vision that we're going to get to where we want to get to. Amazing. So we talked about some of the wins. You talked about the loneliness being some of the challenges, but maybe we can have some of the like, oh my God, the shit hit the fan stories of like the big disasters that you've had of, you know, food going off and things breaking or what have you, just to remind us that you're still human.
We had so many, and it's funny because you forget them, which is nice. I still have, you know, and I will give you some examples. One, we were so after producing from home, at some point we took a production kitchen. It was a shared production kitchen because we could not afford to have our own kitchen. And someone left the door open during the night. So when we arrived, I think at 5 a.m. in the morning to make the rolls, to go to our food market, we had nothing to do because basically all the fridge was not at temperature. So we had to waste all the food. We could not go to the food market. I cried. We had so many stories like that, so many things that didn't work. We did a market. We did a market in Soho, and we were so excited about this market. We were like, okay, we are in Soho. It's going to be, you know, super, a big success. We set up everything. First day, we set up everything, and then we realized we missed, I don't remember which flavor of rolls that we left in the production kitchen. So Denis, he was in garden leave at that time, so he was working with me on the day as well. Denis take the tube and he ran to collect what we had forgotten in the kitchen. And he arrived, it was raining, he arrived running, yeah, I have them. And I was like, I didn't sell anything in the 2 hours you left. And it was a disaster. It was really not our target audience. People just wanted greasy food, and no one was buying, you know, the kind of food we were offering. And it was very hard because when you see the traders next to you with queue, people, you know, buying the food, and you have no one in your stall, and you're like, wow, it will never work. Why these people are not interested in what I'm doing? Would it be a success one day? You know, the fear of not having demand for me is the worst, you know, because this is what you want ultimately. You want to create a product that people want and need. So this kind of, you know, experiences are very difficult, not physically or whatever. They are difficult mentally because you're taking a hit in your dream and you have to, you know, overcome that. And then we had some other funny stories of me selling rolls in the snow in a food market because I wanted to do an accelerator, an incubator of Carib food markets. And it had to be in February. So I was selling rolls in the snow, which was not really enjoyable nor ideal. So yeah, we had like so many stories. And even now, you know, we still have a lot of lows. Investors that promise you to invest and that are not at the very last moment. People that, you know, you have invested in that are leaving you. You know, a lot of little things that are happening every day and that can hit you, and you just have to, you know, survive and
keep going. Tell us, so I love that story of a real kind of shake of the confidence with the food stall where everyone was buying greasy food and not yours. And I think that fear of demand, that fear of failure, that kind of nobody's actually going to want what I have. And then actually the confirmation that, oh no, we're somewhere and nobody did buy it. You know, so let's say for our listeners that are launching their own course and nobody signs up, or, you know, nobody's going onto the mailing list, or they're not getting the likes on Instagram. Hello. And that perpetual feeling of, maybe people don't want what I have to sell. How did you kind of come through that really difficult experience?
So I think you need to find people that want what you have to sell at some point, you know, otherwise it would be depressing and you will give up. So you need to find your niche. For us, we understood very quickly at that time that it was very premium customers. Mm-hmm. So this is why, you know, I was like, okay, I need to send an email to the London Fashion Week. And this is how you get, you know, some endorsement, some reassuring wins that will offset, you know, these terrible experiences. But yeah, I think otherwise you cannot keep going, you know, if constantly. The alternative, I guess, is to pivot and to change what you're selling to make sure that it's fitting what people want. And for us, it was an option, you know, we could have said, okay, we will keep the idea of rice paper rolls, but we will make them much fatter with much more sauces. We could have gone for like an Asian, more dirty kind of concept. We know Asian food is very popular in London. So we could have, you know, and we thought about it at some point. We thought about, you know, pivoting in thousands of directions. But we were convinced that our USP was in the salad sandwich, in a more playful way of delivering healthy food to people. So we were convinced the heart of our proposition was there, and we didn't want to change that. But sometimes you have to. And even us, we did some changes. So for instance, if you now go to Kaleido, you will have 5 dipping sauces, because yes, we understood people are coming to us to look for a healthy product that is convenient, but still we have a lot of customers that are looking for more indulgence, and we have to, you know, address that.
I love it. Yeah. So taking away what you're saying, there will be those moments, those lows where you do doubt yourself, but it's important to maintain conviction in the proposition that you have to offer, but also to make sure that you have product market fit with whatever it is that you're selling, and to find the niche that wants your product and make sure that you're serving the product that they want to them. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so for any foodies that we have listening right now who think, I'd like to start a cafe, or I've got this great idea to create, you know, whatever food business they want to. In case you didn't know, my first business idea was creating, and I've seen it on the tube. Can you believe this now? I just saw it last month on the tube. It was basically creating a form of gnocchi that was one of your 5 a day. So you combine, like, let's say, spinach with pasta and what have you. And I wanted to create pasta that was one of your 5 a day. And I didn't end up pursuing it because I realized that I didn't love food enough, but I was really, I had that entrepreneurial fire within me. And I tried making pasta, and then I just was not interested enough to pursue it. But for those who, not dissimilarly to me, might have a foodie instinct and think that they've got an idea, what do you think they need to know? What are the key attributes they need to have to be successful? What do you kind of wish you knew then that you know now?
I think I knew what I'm going to say now, but I think it's not about knowing it. It's about accepting it deeply into you. So everyone was like, you know, food, hospitality, food is very, very difficult. And actually, I think hospitality and a food retail product is very different. Hospitality is harder to scale. So it is, heavily relying on staff, which is, a main challenge, especially in the current context. And we knew that, everyone told us, all the people I met told me food is very difficult, it's very physical, you rely on people, it's a very tough industry, margins are tight. But I think if you are really driven and passionate, you hear it, but you don't really, So
it reminds me of having a baby. Everyone told me it was going to be really difficult. And then when it was really difficult, I was like, I didn't realize it was going to be this difficult.
Exactly. So I think, I would tell them all these things that they will hear everywhere. But I guess all these things, if you're really motivated, you don't mind because you don't believe them, you haven't experimented them. So it's not the same to hear them and to really, live them. What I would say though is, I think food was, it was difficult to raise money for food because everything was all about tech, for instance. So I was sending presentation to investors and they were like, oh, but is there a part of tech in your product? I was like, no, it's a handmade rice paper roll. So I think, all of that, we knew about it, but I have really understood how tough it was when I was in my journey. But I would say, once you accept it, see if there is a way to still make your model very attractive. So for us, for instance, once we understood, okay, hospitality is very tough, margins are very low, this and that, blah, blah, blah. We build our business model to actually have something interesting that will make our proposition attractive for investors. So we have, for instance, we operate with a central kitchen business model, which means we have, a hub where we are producing all the food, and then we have very, very small shops all around London, which enable us to have a low staff cost in this shop, but also low rent because all these shops are very tiny. What I mean by that is you will hear all the things you should know about food. Some stuff are like that and you cannot really change them, but some stuff you might be able to adapt it and take it into account and try to be a bit more clever in your proposition to address them. We know there is a staff shortage. Everyone knows that. Are you able to automatize some of your production? I don't know, do you want to sell your product in a vending machine, or I don't know, but try to really keep this constraint in your head from the really, really beginning and address them if possible.
Love it. So it's possible to find ingenious solutions to problems and keep things interesting and make things work from a business perspective. Brilliant. Okay, right, last question before we move on to the last question. But you and Denis, your business partner, are husband and wife. Tell us a bit more what it's like working with your spouse.
So it's nonstop. It's a trust you cannot find anywhere else. You have this relationship that you will not have with any other co-founder, I believe, because you know the other person so deeply that everything is simpler because you even don't know, you even don't need to talk sometimes to understand the other one. And obviously, it's sometimes very difficult because it's harder to disconnect. It is, there is no filter. I guess when you have a co-founder, even if you are working very closely every day as a team, you still have some filter. You know, you still have, you can still come back home and tell your partner that you're not happy because he has done this or that. You don't know how to tell him. Or when it's your husband, it is the person you would normally, you know, come and see on the evening to tell everything you have experimented in the day. So you don't have this, you know, exit on the evening. So there is no filter. It's really for the best and the worst. I think it is reinforcing the admiration I have for Denis in my couple, because I see him thrive in his job, and it's something I didn't know before. So I'm learning as well, you know, some new stuff about him because of Kaleido. So yeah, I think it's not for everyone, but for us, it's working well.
Awesome. Okay, love it. So my last question is a boring one, but I keep it because I think it gives, I love the answers that you get to this question, which is, I'd love your best piece of career advice, please.
So it's funny because in the past, I was always answering to this question, better done than perfect, because he was pushing people to do this little step we were discussing at the beginning. But today I want to share another one, which is follow the flow. I think when I hear career advice, you are thinking about your career path and what is right about it or wrong about it. And I think it's not true anymore. I think it's about grabbing the opportunities that are around. And I've always thought about that, actually, even in my corporate life before. I am a strong believer you can do anything in any job, even if you are hired at the very bottom of the hierarchy. If you are really motivated, you can do anything about, you can do anything with your job. You can show all the stuff you're able from any position in a company. So I would say follow the flow, because do not overthink, oh, I should do this and then I should do that, because then I should move here because this is what will make me the next CEO of, you know, this company or whatever. I think just grab the opportunities as they are presenting to yourself. For me, it was, you know, moving to the UK, for instance. It was not at all in my plan. Denis had an opportunity. We moved. I had to take a shitty job when I, you know, came to the UK. And I just did it, you know, and I made the most of it to get another opportunity. And then I, you know, progressed like that. So I think do not overthink your career path and just, yeah, grab the opportunities and follow the flow.
Love it. And look, here you are. You've just bought a flat in London. You're raising a family in London. So you followed that flow to London, and we're very grateful to have you. Fantastic, Laura. Thank you so much for all of your amazing input. I love speaking to you today, and I hope the listeners have enjoyed it too. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.